Testing. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Please take your seats. Up here.
You about ready? Hey gang, thanks again. Getting ready to start to kick off the next session. Joined up here on the panel with three folks from CyberQuest team.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to turn the controls over to Bill Platt, who's going to introduce each one of the folks that are going to be sharing the information with you all today. And afterwards, stick around and we'll talk about continuing education credits that you guys are going to earn. So, Colonel?
Thanks, sir. You bet. Appreciate it. Hey, so I'm Lieutenant Colonel Bill Platt. I'm at the Cyber Battle Lab. I'm a modeling and simulation officer. So what you heard before is pretty complex. When you start trying to get to the how and build it in a modeling and simulation environment and show second and third order effects, that's when it gets extremely hard. So we're going to talk about that today, especially CyberQuest. We'll start off today. I want to introduce you to Chris Washarsky from Arctic. He's going to kind of give a one-slide overview of the ALPA events, the Army Live Prototype Assessments. Then we'll go to Matt Paserno from CERDEC and Lieutenant Colonel Walt Zimmerman. We'll talk a little bit about our partnership, but also how important it is to have the PM side and the innovative side of doing commercial off-the-shelf technologies, having those companies coming in, kind of showcasing their products during CyberQuest. And if you're not familiar with CyberQuest, then it's kind of a neat event where we're bringing in commercial vendors based on a BAA. It's a broad agency announcement. We kind of line up some of the requirements that we have for CyberQuest for the next year. And then if you have a capability that fits that need or requirement, you can actually write back to us through a information paper and a quad chart. And then we go through the vetting process from there. So we've got a great team. I'm looking for my slide clicker, and I'm it. So again, Chris Washarsky will do a prototyping assessment. Then we'll have Matt Paserno and Walt Zimmerman do a CERDEC Cyber Battle Lab teaming effort. And then I'll come back and do probably about a 30-minute CyberQuest brief from 2017, kind of lessons learned. We'll talk about the capabilities, how we trying to shape the cyber cell, SEMA working group, and what that kind of looked like in person. We had a live virtual constructive training environment going on, but we call it experimentation, really an event. So then we'll break at 1:15, and then at 2:45 we'll be back here for the good call for the panel. 2:45 to 1600. And then, those would be very interesting discussions. And then Horace will lead a discussion about 2018 CyberQuest and talk to the vendors about future integration into the Cyber Battle Lab. So without further ado, Mr. Chris Washarsky. Thank you. Thanks, brother. I do, yeah. I think it's just one, right? Or you have...
Yeah. So good afternoon. My name is Chris Washarsky. I'm out of the Army Capabilities Integration Center, Fort Eustis, Virginia. Science, Technology, Research, and Accelerated Capabilities Division within the Capabilities Learning Directorate. We are the organization responsible for the Army requirements, working the Army requirements from concepts through capabilities up into headquarters DA for validation and then execution. What I want to talk to you about just briefly is put in context where CyberQuest fits within the Arctic experimentation plan. But what I want to hit first in the bottom line up front, particularly for our industry partners, is CyberQuest, along with its three other Arctic Live Prototype Assessment Partners provides you the opportunity to receive earlier than you normally would user input to what and how the capability or systems that you might happen to be developing, and allow you to make some necessary adjustments as you see fit based on that input. What it does for us within Arctic is it allows us to embed several requirements, primarily the Army's campaign of learning, which is the development of the near, mid, and far-term force, or Force 2025 and beyond, and the adjustments that would be necessary for any particular concepts based on assumptions made for availabilities or usefulness of certain technologies. It also provides a venue for the Army's Rapid Capabilities Office to do hasty .mil-PF assessments for immediate needs based on whatever any particular theater would need. So what we have here, CyberQuest fits along three other events that take place. Excuse me. The Army Expeditionary Experiment, Warfighter Experiment out of Fort Benning, the Maneuver Fires Integration Exercise out of Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and then the Maneuver Sustainment Support Protection Integration Exercise out of Fort Leonard Wood. Between those four, we call them pillar events, we're able to address all of what the Army considers their continuing or enduring questions or the Army warfighting challenges. As we know, CyberQuest and cyber and EW in general is a huge issue within the Army right now, and it fits nicely, and our partnership fits nicely with these other events because we are able to cross-level within different environments, different situations, and at different levels, all the various issues that may be specific to any particular school. What's represented on the slide is the process. From left to right, we receive our inputs, our capabilities, suggestions from multiple organizations, including industry. We look at the campaign of learning objectives, what DARPA's objectives, what our rapid prototyping requirements are. We determine which is the best of those four pillar events, and if there isn't one that fits specifically, we'll create one that we'll consider we'll call a focused assessment. And then we'll execute the events. We will, on the right side of the slide, you see the various different outputs that come from those events. And I think you'll hear when CyberQuest is discussed that a lot of those are applicable here. And then we provide feedback back into the campaign of learning within TRADOC, as well as back to industry and our tech-based partners. We don't champion any particular systems. We focus on capabilities and how those capabilities fit within any particular concept. That is the primary purpose for resourcing the activity. You'll see the broad area announcement for each one of these events. There's multiple opportunities to participate. Encourage industry to participate. We encourage our tech-based partners to participate, and we strongly encourage you to work with the Cyber Center of Excellence, looking at what their primary needs and requirements are, and then we stand by to support and get these early prototype or rapid prototype systems in the hands of soldiers as quickly as we can, so that we can get the feedback necessary to get them out in the field as quickly as we can. So, pending any questions, I'm done. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Walton Zimmerman. I'm with the Cyber Center of Excellence. This is going to be a dual or tag team brief because we're covering both CyberQuest and Cyber Blitz. Both have a very similar name, both have cyber. And we are going to show everyone in the audience how these are mutually supportive, even though they're sponsored by two different organizations. With me is Matt Paserno. He is from CERDEC, and he's been working Cyber Blitz along when we were working CyberQuest. So this is a dual brief. This is the purpose. Both organizations produce this. With technologies rapidly evolving, we can't wait a full year in between events. We kind of tag team, and the Cyber Center of Excellence is co-sponsoring CERDEC's Cyber Blitz. In addition to what Chris just covered, CyberQuest is part of the ALE events that TRADOC sponsors. So two different sponsoring organizations after the same goals to get better equipment to the warfighter. This is our agenda. Okay. CyberQuest is an annual live virtual prototyping experiment designed to access emerging technologies, capabilities, and support of the Cyber Center of Excellence Force Modernization mission. We're primarily focused on Army Warfighting Challenge number 7. However, we influence and impact most of the other Army Warfighting Challenges also. It's designed to analyze prototype cyber, EW, and network capabilities based on emergent requirements, concepts, and doctrine. Most of these are looked at to the left of the JSIDS model. So we're looking at just prior to a requirements document going out or an emerging concept. However, we also influence concepts and requirements through the JSIDS process in addition to that. And I'll be followed by, we're also a good venue for operational assessments for RDECOM, and CERDEC is a good partner with us for that. And I'll let Matt cover the Cyber Blitz part.
All right, good morning. Afternoon, sorry. First, I just want to thank the Cyber Center for the invitation to join in on their time and talk about the collaboration that we're doing. It's been ongoing, so I appreciate the time. So CERDEC is co-leading the Cyber Blitz with the Cyber Center. CERDEC's a research, development, and engineering organization for the Army focusing on C4ISR. And we have three main functions: technology development, technical capability and concept development, and prototype transition. So within that, we use the Cyber Blitz experiment to operationalize and synchronize our S&T efforts with Army priorities. Partnerships are a key aspect of that, and like Colonel Zimmerman said, it's a two-way street for us. Our partners from our cyber, TRADOC, and across the community help operationalize our event, and then it creates that type of forum for opportunity learning that they can take away with it, and we synchronize and adapt the objectives for it. So we've had a couple events. The first one in 2016 was started between the CERDEC and the Cyber Center leadership. It was focused on convergence. The priorities were set by the Cyber Center, and then we did the systems engineering to make it work. And it generated those lessons learned across the board. For an S&T standpoint, it allowed us to shape some of our investment portfolios. And in early 2016, when we did it, those modifications already affected our 2017 investment portfolios and how we were looking at different projects. It created different observations across TRADOC, and it helped us meet some of our technology milestones for our ASALT partners. We did a quick event in April where we were focused on technology for G2, G357 priorities. Basically, the main takeaway for that is that as things packed up, we still operationalized, but we put it on a plane and some of those capabilities went to theater. So it's that quick turn assessment or integration look. But ultimately, our upcoming event in this September is focused on the brigade. At all of our events, we take an architectural system of systems perspective. Like General Morrison said, it's about an integrated formation, integrated capabilities, not on the boxes. So for our standpoint, we're really looking at how technologies and capabilities influence the overall architecture and fight.
Here you can see a constructive overlap of both Cyber Blitz and CyberQuest. We're going to be establishing an integrated governance body to help control what goes into CyberQuest and CyberBlitz. So we have a unified input. We're going to be we basically share experimental infrastructure and resources. Part of CyberQuest is we borrow a lot of radios from CERDEC, so we don't have to purchase those. And we also want to, we support them with some of the scenarios and model simulation efforts that they need for their exercise. We also want to identify candidates for JWA and NIE and other ALPA events. We just recently hosted a ALPA planning working group at Fort Gordon, of which we had all the other representations from the ALPA events that Chris just covered to come forward to see if they can identify like technologies or technologies from their point of view that can come into CyberQuest. And we also participate in their venues once a quarter to see what we can take as a Cyber Center of Excellence into their venues. CyberQuest is mainly focused on early technologies. As Bill mentioned, we produced a BAA, Broad Agency Announcement, where we have industry partners, academia, and even government agencies can come against the needs that our TICMs have that they want to look at. These needs are based upon concepts, requirements documents that they have in mind of those technologies influencing. That distinguishes it a little bit from what CERDEC does, and Matt will cover this in a minute, but they have government sponsored. They're doing technology turns to do science and technology improvements, but they need a government sponsor. We can take straightly from industry without a government sponsor to start with. Although we're on the left of JSIDs, we also influence the JSID products throughout the cycle, including doctrine towards the end. Our main outputs are a .mil PF assessment of some sort, so we're heavy on the doctrine, material, and organizational parts. Matt?
So on the Cyber Blitz side, like I mentioned before, we really take the system of systems perspective. We're not looking to identify new capabilities. We're not looking like CyberQuest more at identifying disruptive capabilities. It's really the culmination of our ongoing S&T, and we're looking at how those capabilities integrate into the bigger picture, into the brigade command post or to higher or lower echelons. What are those requirements and data dependencies and interoperability drivers? It's primarily for government systems, so we don't do a BAA. We do industry engagement, each individual project on the road to Cyber Blitz. So the event is really a capstone event where all of those projects can do their field-based risk reduction at the same time. And the timeline is a little different. It's focused more on the transition. Typically, it's transitioned to a PM, PEO, but it could also be transitioned to a QRC. And like I mentioned, one of the last events was transitioning to a QRC that then went directly to theater. So that's kind of the distinction on the timeline. As you can see, as Colonel Zimmerman mentioned, there's definitely some overlap, but I think it's a good thing. It means that we're going after the right thing. As he mentioned, there's plenty of work in this domain. The rate of change is far too fast for one event a year or even a couple. Really, it's an integrated campaign to get after the integrated requirements and how the integrated technologies all work together. The Army has a lot of priorities, so it's certainly an integrated campaign provides the ability to synchronize on not only execution but our priorities and objectives. So we, as I mentioned, over the past couple months, we've been working to synergize the relationship, and it's definitely been a great experience. Two of the things that I'll call out: one, we've talked about a governance model to make sure that we are incorporating the top Army priorities, and we're not repeating the same things. We can time phase them over time between events. And then on the strategic side, I was just having a conversation a little while ago. Probably one of the most important things that I see, in addition to just getting operational feedback on the technologies, is really building the relationships between the engineers, the TICMs, the operational force. There's so much turnover and there's so many different things going on. Just having events like these it's a driving force for organizations to figure things out internally. as long as with the key partners that really enable things. So we're going to continue working on it. We're going to look at the best way to synchronize our calendars going forward. We understand that there's a lot of events going on, a lot of planning meetings, but hopefully by implementing a good governance structure, we'll get after that.
This is graphically just showing the two exercises. On the left is CyberQuest, on the right Cyber Blitz. Basically, the governance model is on top of that. As we see technologies go into CyberQuest, we can refer for technology advancement into the government's body, and that can feed back into Cyber Blitz, so we can help inform science and technology decisions that they mature over time. And likewise, as our TICMs go to their venue to help flesh out their .mil PF assessments for other requirements that they may have to flesh out. So we have a direct line between the two events where we share TTPs and lessons learned. So we take something out of CyberQuest and mature it even further. Instead of waiting another 12 months for the next CyberQuest, we can take it into Cyber Blitz and mature it further within 6 months. And likewise, they can bring technologies into ours. In each CyberQuest events, we've had technologies being evaluated from CERDEC. And likewise, each Cyber Blitz, we've had TICMs do .mil assessments and their venues also. And pending, I guess we'll take questions at the end with the whole panel. Bill?
Thanks. Thanks, Chris, Matt, Walt. Anybody have any questions real quick? Okay, let's move on. So just a couple key points. For 17, the focus for 17 was improved technical communications capacity, reach, and security. Is that familiar to anybody? Who wants to extend the network? Raise your hand. And make it more reliable. Oh, there he is. Yeah, good. 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 No, that's perfect. Hey, DCO, Defense Cyberspace Operations. You got to add the space on cyber now. Everybody tracking that? 312? All right, good stuff. EW Mission Visualization, Planning, and Management. You'll see it in later slides. It's a lot easier said than done, right? How do you get EW from the field back in the TOC? And what's the transport layer for that? What's the data rate that's coming back on? How do you inform decisions? How timely are those decisions, right? All these, if you're a vendor and you have a capability, we're interested. Right? If you have a capability that's able to do this on the fly or very quickly in a man-pack Android phone that you can do an IPB on your Android phone and then set priorities for a high-value target, we like you. That's just one example. I'm sure everybody's technologies has some play. So please go on. Is it GovBiz? BizGov? FedBiz. Yeah, look at the BAA. Take a look. Fascinating stuff. I went to the AUSA conference last year, went to ITSIC conference, which is a modeling and simulation conference down in Orlando, Florida, the largest one in the world. And so, lots of people are not informed about what we do at CyberQuest. This was our second annual, but please pass the word around. All right, let's get cranking. So we talked about kind of the overview, the strategic operational view of CyberQuest, SEMA cell, SEMA working group, but how do you do it? What's it look like? How do you visualize what SEMA is and what those second and third order effects are? And then how do you actually allow the commander to make either a non-kinetic or a kinetic strike? It sounds pretty familiar, hopefully, to a lot of the green suiters in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. And so that's a challenge. That's a huge gap that we currently have because we do not have integrated mission command systems. That's how General Funk was talking about the cylinders of excellence. And it's hard to have integration and shared understanding, shared knowledge when you don't have integration. All right, so the problem statement is based on warfighting challenge number 7. I'm not going to bore you too much, but if your eyes would go down to that third bullet down there on the culture change, it is a paradigm shift. Does everybody get that? It is a paradigm shift. So there is a BCT commander we use for the demo day during CyberQuest to have that commander's update brief where we would normally hear just from his staff about last 24 and the upcoming 24-48. And we had the SEMA cell give their pitch. And then we actually did a demo where we had a SEMA attack. So when I say culture, I say fire mission, fire mission, fire mission. And everybody that's served a day in the Army or other service, you know what's coming, right? But when you say SEMA mission, SEMA mission, SEMA mission, everybody just looks at each other. And it's complex. I mean, it's funny, we are laughing, but it's just not ingrained into us what that even means, what those second-order effects. Is it non-kinetic or kinetic, and how do we use the intel picture to drive that, and what the enemy is doing, and how do we identify high-value targets, because those will change in priorities over time. Defensive battle position duffer. Who's read that? Please read that. That is an excellent document written by Lieutenant Colonel retired Leonhard, AWG product. He gives about 8 or 9 dreams, and he puts cyber EW into action as a BCT commander. For example, I'm going to give you an example of one of his dreams. He discusses malicious malware coming into the network. He has left the disk for all of the Abrams tanks maintenance services in a computer system. The malicious malware comes in, infects that system, and then he goes services the tanks with that disk. What do you think it did to the tanks? Weapon systems. Inop, right? Very simply, very plainly, but then he goes and talks about other dreams that he has. And so I encourage you to read that article. It's a phenomenal write-up. Physical versus logical. We always talk about the physical capability gap. What about the logical capability gap? What is SEMA? How do you describe space, IO, EW, cyber? What does that even look like? Who cares if I have a malicious malware? What does it mean to me? If I'm a BCT commander, as long as I can still fire my tanks, fly my helicopters, and I have artillery, I'm not too concerned about it. But when the lights go out, guess what? That's when you have to be concerned about it. So there's different level of attacks and different second-order effects of attack. For CyberQuest, at the very bottom bullet, complexities, levels of complexities to getting people into the right positions to support CyberQuest, right? That was mainly 10th Mountain. And what is the expertise and training experience level of 10th Mountain for Cyber EW? Some okay, some good, some not so good. Some we're retraining on the fly. And then we're still training ourselves. 2014, we took our signal hat off and put our Cyber EW hat on. So we're still learning this as we go as well. So this is all good stuff. But then you get to the network piece. And so we bring in commercial off-the-shelf technologies that may or may not play well with the government network. And that's a challenge. So we have a whole month of integration to get to that stage where we are integrating. But that's with a lot of assumptions that both our network and the vendor network is going to remain the same, or the vendor tool is going to remain the same. And that wasn't the case in a lot of instances. But we worked through it, and then we were able to get some analysis conducted on it. All right. So this is one of my favorite slides because it shows the warfighting functions that I think touches on General Morrison's discussion this morning. It goes right into the commander's intent with the integration piece going backwards and forth, back and forth between all of the SEMA working group cells and organizations back to the warfighting functions because it's iterative. This whole process is the OODA loop. It just keeps going and keeps functioning. And then you have to visualize that data to prioritize if you're the commander. And it's the challenge culturally, again, the complexity of this is if you look at the very top right-hand corner, you have the S3 at the BCT level, the G3 at the division level. They run this SEMA cell. But if they don't have experience with a SEMA cell and even know what a SEMA cell does or is supposed to do, that's a challenge. Okay, so levels of complexity. All right, so what are our experimental objectives for CyberQuest? I'm not going to read them all to you, but they were pretty intense, every single one of them. I will say that a strong learning point from the day one of the exercise on June 5th to June 30th, the BCT commander that role-played the BCT commander from 10th Mountain went from a crawl stage of knowing something about SEMA or anything about SEMA to literally running a scripted event for several general officers and SESs and CEOs of companies to come through, and he was explaining to him how he ran his operations and how he incorporated it into a SEMA cell. Very few folks right now are doing this and using a modeling and simulation backdrop to do that from. So when you do live virtual constructive integrated training environment, this is live virtual constructive experimentation environment, which is pretty awesome. I get pretty excited about that as an FA-57, but that's pretty cool. So you can kind of read them. I won't read them to you, but it's a huge challenge to even do situational awareness, again, because our mission command integrated systems don't integrate very well with one another. And so CPOF we're very reliant on CPOF to have that common operational picture for our commanders and decision makers. All right, so again, complexity, experimentation personnel. We've got soldiers from 101st, 10th Mountain, 25th ID, and 2-8 Infantry. Okay, so some of those were in the live environment playing Op 4. Some of those were the Blue Forces. You will see operational pictures of how we ran operations on a day-to-day basis and what was coming up, an EW measle and a cyber measle, and how we were going to react to those and how we prepared the BCT staff to actually get after those learning objectives and test the technologies coming in and being tested. All right, quick timeline and milestones. So CyberQuest is not planned in a month. It is literally about a 10-month planning process. And by the time you finish CyberQuest 17, Walt and Horace there are extremely busy trying to pull all their information together and plan for 18. And that's not planned in a vacuum either. The whole cyber COE across the COE, all the TICMs. RID, CAD, all of them get together and start having conversations about what's the commander's intent, where does General Morrison want to be, what kinds of information and technologies do we want to bring into test. And so a lot of hard work by the Cyber Battle Lab team and the Cyber COE, so that's good stuff. All right, so our execution window, complexity, training. So we have 3 days of training. That's first day the soldiers show up, they in process. Now we have 2 days of training. Then they get briefed and find out where they live, where they going to eat, and who's running the shuttle. Now they have 1 day of training, and then they start mission. Okay, so if you're a vendor and plan on playing in CyberQuest 2018, I implore you, I beg you, have your technology and create a YouTube video for training. It'll be much more successful. We need to build training packets and get them to soldiers that'll support CyberQuest 2018 a couple months beforehand, and then send our team out there to kind of meet with them and run them through what a CyberQuest even means to them, because they get a force comm tasking and they don't even know what they're supposed to be doing. And so if you have a vendor tool that you're bringing in, please have at least a write-up sheet on the training, how hard it is, how easy it is, what that training tool is supposed to do. I think we mentioned it 3 or 4 times, and we may have gotten one YouTube video, but there's goodness in it. And it doesn't have to be an hour-long YouTube video. It could be a 5-minute or 7-minute video that kind of just explains what the tool does and what its current function is, and where you see it at. If it's a TRL 5, 6, or 7, that's great. If it's a 9, that's good too. If it's a 1, 2, 3, you'll probably be playing in May instead of June. All right, so here's SEMA cell, and you have to forgive me. I will change that to SEMA working group. But anyway, long story short is there's just always activities going on, whether it's in the EMS realm or cyber realm. And at some point, at some juncture in time, the commander or somebody's going to have to make a decision. And that decision point is probably going to split off to either kinetic or non-kinetic or do nothing, right? So there's kind of 3 different choices. You could probably argue 4 or 5. But really, we just like to say kinetic or non-kinetic. What's our response? Is it intel? Is it a recon? Or do we say, let's lay fires on that high-value target because our intel was good and we just re-identified him at the Wi-Fi hotspot, the internet cafe? Sometimes it is that black and white, but majority of the time, it's not that black and white. And so that's when you have to give the commander the most information possible. It's a little knowledge management activity going on in the SEMA working group, that you have to give the commander the most information to make the most educated decision at that time. So I just put a star up there just to get everybody's attention, because at some point you have to decide as the commander, whoever you are, that if is it a kinetic or a non-kinetic strike. And then how do you build that and how do you replicate that in a model or simulation environment? That's a whole different level of complexity. Okay, so I just want to kind of show an overview of the live soldiers were out by the airstrip, Connex Village, FOB Cobra, Cyber Cafe, and then FOB Freedom was where and FOB Ready was where the BCT CP tent was. And then at Cyber Battle Lab, that's where we had models and simulation running, 1 SAF, CyberSense, which is an emulation that we actually used for all the cyber measles that had a second and third order effect on any IP domain or address in the actual network system. It was phenomenal. So, and I'll show you exactly where those are integrated at a later slide. But here's just, kind of a plain slide, but huge complexity, because that's about 11-mile stretch there. And what you're doing is when you say reach back capability and you have aerostats sitting at the airstrip trying to reach back all the way to the top right, the FOB Ready, who thinks that's a challenge? So you go from soldier man pack vendor technology up to a aerostat that's 800 feet up in the air, over to the fire tower, back over to FOB Ready, and then to FOB Cobra. Okay, all right, good. Tough crowd. That's okay. Yeah, huge challenge. And then they're all integrating into a military network. Did you hear that? Military network, scalable, maintainable, fluid. Yeah. Oh, good stuff. All right. Next slide. So here's our network. So when 57's design activities, experiments, ALPA events, training activities, things of that nature, it's a long, arduous process, but it's well worth it in the end, because at the end of the day, you have to do live, virtual, constructed, integrated training environments, right? So one has to kind of do or support the other one. And in this case, a lot of times the vendor tools wouldn't talk to either the military network, or the military network wasn't supportive of the vendor tool. Either way, I'm not blaming either one. But then you had to, what I call bubble gum and duct tape, and then you have to kind of, start writing scripts or measles out in the field that would set the conditions for that event to take place in order that you could measure the capacity or the requirement or the capabilities of that system. So then our TICMs could go through and the white cell could actually do analysis on what that meant. So extremely valuable. So up here is back at the Battle Lab, that CyberSense capability. That's a Matova product that's actually in the Cyber Battle Lab. I haven't seen any other products that even come close as far as either a trainer or going after IP address. It's an emulation, so you can actually inflict or take off at any time, but you can preset emulated attacks, malicious malware, things of that nature. And we had to set it up in a virtualized environment. So that was just in and of itself was phenomenal, that we actually virtualized machines, put them into a cloud-based environment, and then affected those virtual machines. So pretty cool. So again, complexity of the network. You go down to the BCT talk. We had basically all of the mission command systems. Sometimes when you get mission command system operators that have never seen that mission command system, that's a challenge. So don't do that to yourself again. And then other times, you may have a mission command system that doesn't like other mission command systems, and they won't integrate. And so when you try to implement new mission command systems in with vendor tools, there's a lot of upfront and back-end work that you have to do. So all good lessons learned for us, and we're looking forward to 2008 and improving that process. All right, then you have the Alive environment out here, Fob Cobra. Zach Vogt over there in the corner did phenomenal stuff out there with the guys. That's really, when we say live environment, it was a lot of the EW tools as well as the Tickham tactical radios. And then next to Zach, we have Jason Broderick, who's my Australian brother, who was my battle captain, but really did strong yeoman's work throughout the network. So just really good stuff. Everybody did a phenomenal job. But the live environment was a challenge the whole entire time because we were way outside the box. Aerostats, we had handheld devices, we had devices we never even integrated before with PM devices. That the PM device was kind of the standard, doing good things, and then we tried to measure it up against, and it was really cool. So that was a great takeaway. So these aerostats on the bottom, for those of you who've been over to Afghanistan, you know that's nice when it's not windy. When it's windy, it presents a challenge. And same thing, it didn't stop at Fort Gordon, right? So same kind of challenges at Fort Gordon. When it's windy and they can't fly, then you can't do extended range network based on aerostat capability. All right, so I just wanted to show you pictorially what a tactical live environment looked like. We mainly did squad, platoon size, maybe company size elements. That's a stretch. Company minus, Zach. But they each had an objective for that day. A measle for the EW environment meant that when you got into a specific 10-digit grid, you either were emitting something or you were getting picked up from and measured in either offense or defense position. So that was pretty neat that the measles ran, and we had all this pre-coordinated through the IPB process for high-value targets, Wi-Fi cellular networks, things of that nature, all in class. So how that was extracted, how the daily battle rhythm went. This is the last 24. So this is looking back behind us. And then we go to the next 24 to 48 hours, and we say, okay, what's going on in this threat? And so on the left-hand side, we have the cyber injects, and those were each numbered with a kind of extrapolation of what those cyber injects look like. But they were all preloaded in CyberSense, and from CyberSense, when the time was right, we actually literally hit enter, and that CyberSense capability would go through the network and affect whatever virtual box was on the other side. Okay, so we automated through CyberSense, we'd hit enter, and it literally automated and caused an effects on the other side. And then it could go back and forth, red, blue, green, gray, any IP address. Phenomenal stuff. All right, so my main job in the Army is do Army experimentation, and so lots and the big requirement right now is to show me threads, show me what a thread looks like, and then show me what the requirements for the threads are, and then tell me second and third order effects. And so this goes back, as the gentleman about the capabilities. Anyway, he asked a question about, so what Army capabilities are you tying this to? And that's a phenomenal question, because when you talk about cyber and EW, what capabilities are out there currently? Some good ones, but I'm not sure we're there yet. We're still testing. That's why this Cyber Quest is extremely important. Cyber Blitz is extremely important. And our partnership is probably the most important, because we're drawing the vendor tools, hopefully the best of breed, right? We want you all, vendors, to come show us your capabilities, and then working with CERTIC, then we put our heads together and say, hey, there's a software platform that would certainly enhance this capability that we currently have in the Army, or this software platform and hardware platform really is much better, or no, it's not as good because we're already tied into X, Y, and Z. So what a great opportunity this is to actually run through this, and this is a CyberQuest thread that actually shows effects. And then at some point you have to make a decision, and that decision may be, hey, I need some help. I need a cyber protection team guy to come in, take a look at my network, and either throw protection on it, reboot it. You know, if it's a denial of service attack, it may not be that big of a deal. But getting the right expertise level in there to say yes, no, or maybe is a challenge. All right, so this is electromagnetic interference thread. And so what we did for the experimentation community is we took the CyberQuest threads that are in the unclassed environment and then put them in it. You know, obviously we've added a whole bunch more stuff to it, but for experimentation. But I saw very quickly that there's some lessons learned from a CyberQuest event or a Cyber Blitz event that doesn't change throughout the process. You know, you can tell the story. It may be on a different piece of land or it may be in a different environment, but there's some challenges out there that are kind of common, and we call that a common framework of scenarios throughout every single one of those processes. And the more we learn that, I think it will become better and better. So, summary of CyberQuest Emergency Insights. How am I doing on time? Sorry, running.
Got about
Okay.
8 minutes.
All right, good, thanks. So we've talked a lot of these. How do you automate and conduct forensics? I love that word, conduct automated forensics. How do you actually go hunt? How do you kill in the cyber world? How do you see where that entered and what effects those had on your network? Do you follow it? Do you listen to it? Do you destroy it? Do you block it? Do you reboot? Yeah, go ahead.
The first comment was made pretty much by our Tickum Cyber and our Tickum Network and Services brethren. Major Williams is in the audience, so Bill, if you like, Major Williams, you want to comment on that first bullet up there, just as a, you know, just as what you all saw from a forensics and malware standpoint?
I got one right here for you, brother.
So for forensics, what we were after was live forensics, the ability to not turn a machine off, to actually not mail it in and have a deep forensics inspection done on it, but actually to query the system while it was operational and say, okay, what had the enemy done to it? What were they using? And what we really were able to demonstrate is that, one, the tools were very effective at getting that results back quickly so commanders could take actions and informed decisions against the adversary. What it also allowed them to do was update the signatures across the databases so that instead of having a theater be vulnerable to an attack, within minutes they were able to take those signatures, push them back up, update it so that actually we were protecting not only that local unit, but you could protect an organization. So if you had something like WannaCry that was spreading across a network, they may get a couple of machines, but using live forensics, you could block that attack not only local but within theater, and then you could hopefully gather intelligence to help identify where the attacks had come from. And the tools we tested were very effective at quickly getting that information into the hands of the unit and the commander, and they were able to use that in targeting decisions in the SEMA process in order to engage the enemy. And in this case, they used information to fictitiously, notionally identify where the cyber cafe was, the attacks were originated from, and then the commander took actions on that. So.
Good, thanks, Jackie. Anything else? Any of the other Tickums want to comment on these emergency insights? Mark?
I'm going to cover, I guess, the electronic warfare that was covered in here. Some of the insights we got from this were onefold was the ingestion issue of how do you get the sensors into the TOC is not easy. We're running on a low tactical infrastructure. I'm running my sensors on the SRW network. I'm running a mid-tier network of ANW2, pushing it up to the WinT system. This is all very, very low data bed. I'm running sensors that are typically wanting to run TCP/IP, which runs terrible on SRW. So you have to deal with that and transition and try to help the vendors know that we're running to operate on a UDP infrastructure, which doesn't take as much overhead on the data infrastructure. So that was one of our problems that we had to really deal with. Second issue was the actual getting with the vendors and getting with our ingestion system, which was at the time was Chesapeake, and getting the V&V processes done right. When we did 2016 CyberQuest, we were very, very tight on how to do the V&V. When we did 2017, we were a little bit looser because we felt very confident that we had a good ingestion system. We were going to go well. So we said, okay, vendors, here's the configuration file. Get yourself to meet with Chesapeake and get going. Well, we spent off a 3-day evaluation of one sensor, at least a day and a half, just getting him integrated into the system, because it really requires a lot of work and a lot of integration process and a true strong V&V process to go. The last one I would say is when you take an EW sensor, it looks great on PowerPoint when you say we want sensor down to the soldier. The problem you run into there is if you've got an infantry soldier in a squad carrying a sensor, is he a sensor manager or is he an infantry squad? What we saw a lot was the infantry guy would be constantly looking down at the monitor, even though he didn't really fully understand it, and he'd reacting to every blip that would come up on the waterfall chart. Not a good move, not a good process. But we did have a couple vendors that showed us some different ideas to give us a look at, so we could actually look at how to do it better on that. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks, Mark. Anybody other TICMs, CAD, RID? Yes, sir.
I'm Major Atler from TICM Tactical Radio. Key thing from CyberQuest 16 and 17 is we developed a realization actually about a convergence of requirements between tactical radios, EW specifically, right, and potentials from cyber and as well as N&S. Reality is the Army's done things typically in more of a stovepipe scenario, both in terms of requirement as well as acquisition. And now we are so interconnected because of changing technology. As an example, Mark's the EW sensor, for example, could be done with software on, let's say, the upcoming leader radio as an example, because radio is a software platform for other RF applications. And that realization occurred primarily because of CyberQuest 16 forcing people who normally stovepiped organizations to work together the way we did. Because of that, we turned 3 radios down into 1, or the dismounted soldiers will have to carry. That's a good thing. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Captain Widener from TICM Networks and Services. And one of the biggest insights that we were looking at, as Mark mentioned earlier, especially when you have stuff on the network, how do we, as the network managers, monitor both the upper and lower TI? So one of the capabilities that we are starting to go after is how does the network managers at the brigade level be able to reach down into that lower TI and manage that network? One of the biggest insights that we got from it is, as Mark mentioned earlier, especially if you're running on SRW radio that doesn't have that significant throughput you would have like on a WinT node, any type of extra traffic that gets sent down to that radio trying to monitor could possibly crash that network due to the excess overhead, the extra traffic that you're putting at. So that was one of the biggest insights that we got from CyberQuest, looking at how we manage the network, but when we're developing our capabilities and our requirements, how do we move forward? What do we need to keep in mind? And that's something that's very big, is keep in mind what's operating in that lower TI, so that way when we develop our requirements, we know that's what we have to plan for. So,
yeah, that's good. Thanks, Scott. Okay, we've got about 2 more minutes. Questions, any more comments, concerns? So my last slide here, I think, resonates with the team for sure within Cyber COE. I think a lot of the vendors, I think their eyes were opened as well on how we set up a network. How do we integrate a network? How do we integrate? And by the way, we went from 12 technologies to 44 technologies in 1 year. That's complexity. And so how do you evaluate? But really, every device, whether you're out in the live environment, whether you're sitting in a talk, is a vulnerability. And you can think of that from a couple different perspectives. And so one of the challenging thing is you can think of that as kind of a defensive posture, but I encourage you to start thinking as an offensive posture as well, because especially on the EW side, if you're throwing an emitter out there, it's getting picked up somewhere. So that's good. Any questions before we break?
Bill,
Yes.
one comment based off what was just covered was emerging insights, but the final report will be up to TRADOC no later than 29 September. So you'll be able to find that on the street. 29 September is when our report will be up at TRADOC.
Great. Thanks, Walt. Good point. And at 14:45, we'll have a academic panel back here. Same place, right, Horace? Okay. Thanks. Thanks for everybody's time. Y'all have a great day. Hooah.